Hey, employers. So, Indeed has recently launched this new AI tool called the Apply for Me, which automatically applies to your job postings on behalf of the job seeker. And depending on which billing plan you're on, you might be charged every single time it does, even if the candidate had no idea they applied to you, and even if they never respond to your outreach and basically ghost you. Now, if you want to dispute the charge, well, the policy says that Indeed's count is binding. So let's talk about what that actually means for your hiring budget and your compliance. I'm Steve Smith. I'm the co-founder of Applicant Pro, and I am now HR consultant. And so I consult with organizations all the time on hiring practices and pretty much anything HR. I have sat on the employer side of hiring technology for over 20 years, and I understand how these billing models work. And I want to walk you through something in Indeed's policy that I believe that most HR professionals, business owners, and employers haven't really had the time to read carefully, but you're going to start seeing it in your budget line items, and I want to make you aware. Okay, so let's first talk about how billing works with Indeed and the part that I think, you should be concerned about. So there are three types of relevant pricing models with Indeed. The most common one has been around for years called the pay per impression. Auto apply can be counted as an impression according to the policy. The second type is what we call a pay per click. Pay per click has been around for a long time. In fact, I used to get made fun of because when I would say pay per click, some people thought I was saying paper clip. And so it wasn't accurate. But it can also be counted as a click, okay? The third type, which is actually gaining a lot more relevancy today and is used quite often, is a pay per started application. The auto apply explicitly counts as a started application because they're actually sending the resume over to you automatically. So that's important because basically your started application is complete even if the user doesn't decide to basically proceed further, and they don't even know that they submitted to you, which leads to this ghosting phenomenon where I'm basically paying for ghost applications in essence. And because the policy specifically says that Indeed's count is binding, there's not really any dispute mechanism here. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a problem there. So you're basically paying for an application that was generated by an algorithm, submitted on behalf of someone who never really deliberately chose your company, and oftentimes will never follow up with you, even though you leave the voicemails and send the emails and the text messages, and you have no recourse to even dispute the charge. So that's what's in the policy right now. Okay, so bias and compliance risk, I think, is something that you cannot ignore. See, the issue is I believe that this matters the most and it's getting the least attention. When Indeed's algorithm decides which candidates get routed to your job posting, it's basically making a selection decision for you. And selection decisions can produce disparate impact on protected classes under Title VII and the ADEA, even when they're made by software and not humans. That is very clear. See, you do not control, audit, or even see the variables that the algorithm uses, but yet the outcomes land in your applicant tracking system and in your candidate pool. The EEOC's guidance on this is employers actually bear the responsibility for those auditing tools used in the hiring process for adverse impact. That means you need to check on it, right? Federal contractors, auto applied candidates entering your applicant tracking system can also affect your affirmative action plan data. It can impact your adverse impact analysis, your OFCCP audit readiness. See, these are all things that are extremely important. And I think it's also important that you need to consult your compliance counsel. Now, I'm not saying the algorithm is producing these biased results, but what I am saying is you don't know. And when you don't know, that itself, I think, is a problem. Okay, so let's talk about the ghosting issue because I really feel like this problem is only going to get worse. As you know, in my book, I've written a lot about ghosting. I have an entire chapter dedicated to ghosting. I even have presentations that I do all over the country called Becoming an HR Ghostbuster. So it's already a significant problem in recruiting today. And Apply for Me has the potential, to me, to make it significantly worse. And not because candidates are being disrespectful, but because some of them genuinely have no idea that they've even applied for you. The application was sent on their behalf. And so when the recruiter starts to reach out, they may be completely confused that they're even getting this message from the recruiter. So I feel like this is important because the application volume numbers from Indeed may become less and less meaningful as a quality signal. I mean, 200 applicants may not actually be 200 people who are actually interested in your role. Okay, so let's talk about 5 things that you can do as an employer right now to start addressing this new apply for me model from Indeed. So first and foremost, call your Indeed rep. Review your billing model with Indeed. Understand how the auto applied applicants are being counted and charged on your account, and push back a little bit. Ask them to be a little bit more transparent about those candidates that they're sending over that are AI generated. Why? Well, it behooves you to review your process. This is part of your review process. Second, contact your applicant tracking system. Talk to your rep. Ask whether those auto applied applicants are being flagged or tagged in some format within the applicant tracking system. If the feature is available, have them toggle it on. If it's not available, ask them to create it and work with Indeed to make it available. I've worked with tracking systems for many years and helping build one from scratch. I know that those are possible. It is possible to put in programming guidelines so that you can flag applicants accordingly based on what is received from Indeed. And when Indeed send those over in the feed, there's a way to build it in there. It takes some time on the applicant tracking part and Indeed's part for that matter. But I think as employers, we have every right to ask for this. Third, go ahead and revisit your adverse impact analysis methodology. You'll probably need to start factoring in how the auto-applied applicants are affecting some of your data, especially for those of you who have an affirmative action plan. Very important. But even if you don't have an affirmative action plan, adverse impact still matters. And so just look at your methodology and make sure you're factoring these new features in. Fourth, document your selection criteria. Be objective, consistent with your documentation. I can't emphasize this enough. I think documentation is going to be even more critical going forward so that you don't get in trouble with some of these AI models that are being put into play. And then finally, seek legal counsel. This is always the default, right? Especially if you're a federal contractor, a large employer, regulated industry, public sector. Like these are the types of industries that run into these types of issues all the time. And so go ahead and talk to legal counsel. There's still things up in the air. There's a lot of cases right now that are in the court system that haven't even settled yet. And so there's not really a lot of case law that's already available to you. And so sometimes the legal counsel is just simply, how do we prepare for this? Or how do we, at least document and put in constraints, if you will, or parameters that we should focus on going forward when it comes to these applicants that are coming in. I think these are fair arguments. And again, these are 5 things you can do immediately to at least get the conversation going. And I think that's really what we have to do at this point. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is what I call the applicant tracking blind spot. So auto-applied candidates arrive in your applicant tracking system looking identical to the manually submitted ones. There's no flag. There's no indicator. There's really no way to know that this applicant came from an AI model. Think about that for just a second. During the application process, how things have already evolved, if we use AI to make decisions on applicants, we actually have to let the applicant know up front that we are using an AI model, and they basically agree to that, right? So we have to basically be transparent about that up front when an applicant is actually submitting their application to begin with. Now think about some of the operational consequences here. Interview invites are going out to applicants, phone calls are being made to people who haven't really applied. In fact, some of our offer process might even be initiated for people who are only passively matched and they really didn't have 100% of their skin in the game. So from an employer perspective, I feel like there's absolutely the ability to flag these applicants within your ATS that they were generated by AI. In fact, I feel like Indeed owes that to the employers. And the good part about this is it should be flaggable. I have worked in applicant tracking system for the last 18 years. I helped design Applicant Pro from the ground up. And I know there are ways to institute models and programming so that you could know that these applicants have been flagged. And so one of my call outs to you as employers is you should demand this of Indeed. You should demand that Indeed lets you know that it is an AI applicant, because think about it. When you're looking at 2 applicants and you know one was generated by AI automatically, but the other one actually took the time to fill out your application and submit their information to you, which one do you think you're going to want to talk to more? Like, who's going to be first on that list that you're going to want to reach out to? I think these are important things. These are things that we have to consider as employers because they make a huge difference in our process. And I feel like they could have an absolute impact on who we decide to reach out to first. Okay, so finally, for Indeed to be fair, if the algorithm works well, it could surface genuinely qualified passive candidates who never even would have found you. Honestly, that's a real benefit, right? The concern isn't the concept. The concern is the billing transparency, the compliance exposure, and the fact that the policy, the way it's written, at least right now, it just really protects Indeed first. And I think that's part of what needs to change here. So in part 3, so this is part 2 of a series. Part 1, I talked about this apply for me model as it related to the applicant. This is part 2 as it relates to you as the employer. In part 3, I'm going to take all of this directly to Indeed. I'm going to make a specific challenge about what they need to do to fix this apply for me model, especially while it's still in beta. That's the good news about this, is we still have the ability to voice our opinions on it, because right now it's still possible. So let's make sure that they hear from the HR community before it gets locked in. So links 1 and 3 are going to be obviously in the description area. And then if you have any questions, comment below. And I would love to know if you've already been using Apply for Me. Has it already shown up in your applicant tracking system? Have you noticed it? What kind of challenges has it produced for you? I think these are conversations we need to start having in HR, and I would love to hear your comments. So go ahead and leave your comments below. If you like what you've heard today, don't forget to subscribe to the Hiring Tree.